Hey friends, today's episode is with a man named Levi Barker. He comes on the show to talk about the work that he's doing at his Iboga retreat center in Costa Rica called Iboga Wellness. I've wanted to have someone on the show to talk about Iboga for a while now. I know quite a bit about ayahuasca. I've experienced it a lot myself, but I haven't learned much or done Iboga myself. And so wanted to have someone on to hear about the benefits of it, what it does for people, what the experience is like. Why would someone do this? I found myself having some preconceptions in the past that this is like a really scary thing. And Levi helped me in a way, like come down to earth about it, or just understand it better, release some of that anxiety, and understand the love that's in this medicine. And so we talk about a lot of different things about Iboga and what it's like. We talk about a mind cleanse that it does. It sort of takes you on this multi-day journey where it sort of filters through all of the stuff in your mind at a really rapid pace that can feel a little bit frantic, but it's this process of cleaning out your mind. And then there's like a dopamine, serotonin reset that occurs in your body. And then there's a emotional purge that comes on the other side of that. And people with all kinds of different issues, from addiction to depression to anxiety to childhood abuse of all the different varieties, find that this is a really helpful medicine for them. It helps them empty things out from their memory bank or from their experience that are sort of stuck inside, you could say. Like sometimes trauma can be conceptualized as a experience that gets stuck inside of you, gets stuck in your nervous system. And Levi shares in this episode about how Iboga allows us to bring those things up and then walk them out the front door of our lives so that we can like really release them. And he tells a few stories of people who do that and how it physically changed the structure just of their face via that letting go process. We talk about Iboga and ibogaine and its treatments for addiction and how Iboga is different from ibogaine. And we talk about how Iboga is a teacher, how it comes across as a teacher, and but how it reveals the teacher within you. So I really enjoyed this conversation. It was illuminating for me, and it just sounds like Levi's doing great work down there at Iboga Wellness, and finished the call with a sense of feeling grateful that yet another medicine is available to the people who need it, because this medicine came from inland Africa, in Gabon, and was there for centuries, just sort of locked in there. And practitioners have come over to the West and started sharing this and serving this in a good way. So if you're curious at all about Iboga, or if you're just curious about psychedelics in general, this is an interesting conversation in that vein. Things that you should know about what's going on for me is that this conversation brought up this desire that I have for the future to take people on these like retreat type journeys, these medicine retreats. I've been to the jungle in Iquitos for 3 weeks and had my own experience down there at a center. And I'm still in contact with those people closely. And it's a center that I trust and that I recommend people go to. But if someone wants to go to the jungle with me sometime in the future, not this year, but perhaps next year or the year after, if you want to be in contact with me because I'm someone that you feel like you can trust to take you on that journey, I'm honored. You can get on my list. I have a small list of people that want to be kept informed about journeys that I'm planning to take to the jungle, or maybe even to Levi's place at Iboga Wellness in Costa Rica. I'll have to go meet him first and really get that experience of being close with him before taking a group of people there. But I can see a future for myself where I take groups of people down to these places once or twice a year. So if you want to do that with me, you can send me a message on Instagram. Just look me up on Instagram on Evolving Man. Send me a DM that has the word medicine retreat in it, 2 words, medicine retreat. And that will trigger a message that gets you the email sign up link that puts you just in this one sort of box that I have just for people who want to go on retreats with me. I currently host 1 retreat per year for a small group of men that's 7 days long, involving ayahuasca with the shaman that I trust and have been working with for 10 years. And so that list will also get that information from time to time when I'm leading those retreats. Usually, it's just a small group of clients who are working with me closely right now, but occasionally I'll open that up to people who have been waiting on the list. So there's that piece in terms of what I'm doing. I'm also doing the Freedom from Addiction Circle still. It's a men's group for guys who want to recover from addiction, guys who are struggling to make a real change, really make a move in their lives, but they're not sure whether they need to like fully check themselves into rehab for the next month and a half or 2 months. It's a huge step. Sometimes guys just need a circle, a tight circle of support, a tight structure. So that's what the Freedom from Addiction Circle is. You get a group brotherhood, and you get coaching from me every week on Wednesdays. So if you're interested in that, you can also send me a message on Instagram with the word freedom. And if you don't have Instagram and you're interested in either of these things, you can just send me an email through my website or ben@evolvingman.com, and I can get you the information you need or get you on the list that you need. Okay, folks, enjoy this episode with Levi Barker talking about Iboga. Okay, I'm sitting here with Levi Barker from Iboga Wellness, and we're going to talk about all things Iboga, plant medicine here today. Thank you for joining me to share about what you do, Levi.
Yeah, thanks so much, man. Thanks for having me on. So my name is Levi Barker. I'm originally from California, but I've been in Costa Rica the last close to 11 years working with Iboga. And so we're an Iboga retreat center, which differs a bit from, say, like an ibogaine clinic, where you're more dealing with, the physical needs of somebody detoxing from drugs, and we're more on the psycho-spiritual end of things. So people come here for depression, anxiety, and really at its core, everybody that comes through wants to live a better life. And that's the most important thing that we can do as humans is make the most of our time here. And so that's really what we focus on for people, is using Iboga as a tool to really study ourselves and life. And like I said, make the most of our time here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it sounds like, I'm glad I'm speaking with someone who works with Iboga, because I previously had someone on the show who works with ibogaine, and that's an extract from Iboga that helps with the physical detox from opiates, right? And it's usually used in a medical setting for people who are in a very sensitive space where they're detoxing. And so, correct me if I'm wrong, but what you're using here, what is the original plant medicine Iboga, which is the root, it came from Africa, and it's more of a spiritual and personal insight, evolution, growth tool that can help you learn, grow, transcend, work through your issues.
That's pretty much it. Yeah. As humans, we go through life, things happen to us through our experiences, and, those things follow us around as far as habits, patterns, memories. So yeah, we work with, the pure plant, unadulterated in itself. And so, it's a very, very ancient medicine, I imagine a lot of your audience has heard of ayahuasca. And so, those plants have been around forever, but up until some point, somebody had to figure out to put these two plants together, the vine and the leaf of the plant, and cook it and drink it. Whereas Iboga, just off the root of the plant, it's right there. And so, the earliest people to discover Iboga, and possibly the earliest people on Earth, were some of the pygmy groups in West Equatorial Africa, and they had observed animals eating at this plant, the Iboga plant. And they saw animals eating it, and that led them to then try it. And at some point, they tried it. And after, working with the plant over and over again, what they found is that just very consistent messages about what it means to be a human, what it means to be, living life here on Earth, nature around us. They found these lessons kept coming through time and time again. And so then a tradition formed that revolves around, using Iboga to study life itself. And so
Mm.
that went on for a very long time, and they actually kept it secret for who knows how long. Like, time even today isn't real important in Africa, and especially with indigenous groups, time periods are not logged like they are today. But
Right.
eventually, they shared it with other tribe people groups within that area of Africa, and then different traditions started forming based around the plant Iboga. And so, and then eventually it made its way here to the West. Probably 25 years ago, it started kind of coming more on the scene, and was really known as a substance abuse addiction tool, mostly for opiates, but it absolutely works just as well for other addictions as well, whether it's alcohol, amphetamines, whatever it may be. But there's some of those things that you have to wait a period of time before taking the Iboga. Whereas, say with opiates, somebody can actually be in physical withdrawal, and you can give it to them,
Mm.
right after they say have their last dose of opiates. And so it was known as that for a while. And then eventually, here in Costa Rica, the path that's followed, the tradition around Iboga, is called Bwiti. And so this Bwiti healer came to Costa Rica probably 18, 19 years ago. It's been now, maybe even 20. Came here and started the first traditional Iboga retreat in the West. So this was kind of the first time that Iboga had come out of Africa and been worked with in a traditional way. And so a friend of mine went there for healing in its early days, and I ended up meeting this guy, this healer, through a friend, and we became friends, and I started helping him with his business, and eventually started having some ceremonies with him. Actually, I'm sorry, I skipped a big part, but maybe I'll go back to that later. But I had Iboga first, then met him. I had
Mhm.
Iboga for my own addiction, and
Mhm.
then met him after. And so, yeah, started having ceremonies, and that's kind of where all of this spawned from. He was the first one to come to the West that could certainly speak English and share about the tradition of Bwiti and Iboga. And yeah, just the messages with Iboga are just very pure. Like it really puts right in front of you what's important in your life. And within us, obviously, that's managing, our own mind, taking care of our body, our relationship with nature. And so he started sharing this with us, and then eventually started training people to work with Iboga in a more
Mhm.
traditional way. And I started doing that. And then my partner and mentor, Gary Cook, was the first student to graduate from here, and he started Iboga Wellness. So in January of 2025, it'll be our 11th year going.
Mm.
So the kind of the oldest psycho-spiritual Iboga retreat in the West.
Nice. Thank you for sharing that history with me. I wasn't aware of that piece. I and Yeah, I'm curious. I'm curious how if you want to share a little bit about your story and how you ended up taking Iboga, and how did it affect such a powerful change in your life?
Yes, so I grew up, like I said, in California. And some of my earliest memories during the 80s was watching the news and watching the news. And I remember them speaking about how addiction is a genetic condition,
Right.
and kind of, reporting that, these kids that are born with addict parents, or they have it in their, in their lineage at all, they really don't have a choice and they're going to be addicts as well. And so on my mom's side, there was definitely a lot of addiction and alcohol, including opiates. And I remember even from a young age of maybe 8, 9 years old, seeing some of those news stories and really taking it in and thinking, wow, I don't even have a choice. Like at some point, I'm going to be addict as well. And so at some point, I fulfilled that through. I had experimented a lot before, but I broke my wrist snowboarding when I was 19
Mm.
and had my first Percocet. And I really realized it made me feel comfortable around people for the first time. And um, yeah, just felt relaxed, no anxiety. And then, followed that. And then eventually that led to, harder and harder opiates, including heroin. And
Mm.
so that went on for about 10 years. I lived in San Diego for most of my 20s, and just could never get away. Maybe I'd be clean for a month or 3 months, not much more than 4 months ever. And yeah, it was just kind of getting, yeah, just out of options. And so a good friend of mine who knows a lot about chemistry and plants. I asked him if there was anything that could help with addiction, and he mentioned Iboga to me. And so this was quite
Mm.
a while ago. This is probably 17 years ago or so, 18 years or longer than that, like 19 years ago. So I
Mm.
ended up getting some Iboga from this friend, just pure Iboga root bark from the plant. I was starting to transition to living in Nicaragua at the time. I had met my now wife there, and so was kind of going back and forth, but spending more time there. And so eventually in Nicaragua, ran out of my last pills, and had the Iboga, waited about 12, 14 hours to kind of let the withdrawal settle in a bit, and then took this Iboga for the first time. And yeah, I felt it coming on within an hour and kind of stopped taking it. Like I didn't have a lot of instructions on it.
Yeah, like, did you measure or like weigh it?
I knew I had 50 grams of it. And it's funny, this friend, I asked him, so what do I do? And essentially gave me two instructions. He's like, just down all of it and then lay there and try not to move your head. I'm like, okay, well, so I made my way through about half of it, and I could tell like that was enough. I could only get down so much at a time. And then
Yeah.
eventually, when kind of an hour came up, I felt it coming up. And so it ended up making my way through about 25 grams of that. And for anybody listening, like it's a really bad idea to do this, especially with how strong the opiates are now. With just fentanyl. I wasn't using heroin or something like that at the time. I was using prescription pills. But anyways, yeah. So I you know got you know got out of physical withdrawal within an hour and a half, and then I had 3 nights kind of laying there in bed without sleeping. And for a lot of people, when they say take iboga or ibogaine for addiction, sometimes it's just not say psychedelic at all. And I was fine with that. It's more of just a physical cleanse that was happening, and that was certainly my experience during that time. But yeah, eventually got to
Okay.
night 4, got some sleep, and woke up from that point, and I wasn't in withdrawal anymore, which was amazing to me. And so that was my first experience into that.
Wow. So it was not a psychedelic experience for you. Like you didn't have visions, you didn't encounter teachers, you didn't feel like mushroomy or acidy in your consciousness. You were just sort of like, were you tired or feeling heavy, and so that's why you were in bed for 3 days? Like, tell me more about what the experience was like.
Yeah, we can go into this more. That's why typically, especially for opiates, like ibogaine is a better tool for
Mm,
opiate detox. But yeah, part of it was probably the dosing. I probably could have had more, and I probably would have had more, say, psychedelic things happening.
right.
Um, but just getting out of the withdrawal was plenty for me, and I did have, there was things happening, but nothing like, say, my experiences after.
Right.
When say the iboga doesn't have to go in and physically clean you and like focus on that part of things, it's very different.
Uh-huh. So there's like, yeah, and I hear you saying sort of that, like, the medicine was working on having to clean out your system rather than like transforming your mind.
Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. And that's how iboga works. It goes to the most important pieces of what needs to be healed first in order to move forward. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, that was definitely the focus.
I had the producers of Dosed, and plus, I believe Adrienne came on too.
Hmm.
Back in the day after they released the film, and so some of my listeners will be familiar with that documentary because I was a really big fan of what they were sharing there. And what I saw when they sent Adrienne through this Iboga Center um, with Mark Howard was that she went through about the same amount of time of like a full system reboot. Like, she appeared to turn into a child for a day, and then like a preteen the next day, and then sort of a teenager moving into adulthood the next day, and then she was sort of finally back after after the third day or so. Is that something that you see, or was that more of a dramatic effect, or like, what do you? How does that resonate?
Man, yeah, that was deep seeing that part of the documentary. It's been quite a while since I've seen it, but in a lot of ways, yeah, Iboga does take you back to, you know, uh, tendencies and say our actions as a kid.
Mm.
So as we go through life, like, just the habits that we build, the things we learned come into us through childhood and then end up following us around. And so, not to where people, here at least, imagine it happens more, say, in ibogaine clinics where they're, say, focusing on detoxing people. You don't see it that extreme here,
Mm.
but it can definitely take you back in a way and show you where things got into you, belief systems about yourself, or if it's a relationship with your parents or family, can definitely show you where those things originated from.
Uh-huh. So in a way, like, the regression that she was experiencing was something that she needed to go to that place because there was wounding in childhood, there was wounding in those phases of her life that she needed to go back and re-experience in the medicine, and that is fairly common.
Yeah, that part can
Part. Mhm.
happen. Yeah, that
Mhm.
part can certainly happen. Yeah, and one thing just for your listeners, I came to say Iboga through addiction, talking about dosed, and and it's really got out over the last 7, 8 years or so. But yeah, Iboga, is just a much bigger tool than for addictions that we have,
Yeah.
and so, yeah, more people are coming to Iboga now for things outside of addiction. But absolutely, it's the most powerful addiction interrupter on the planet. And but that doesn't mean it works for everybody either. Like, there's so much work, especially if you've had a long-term addiction, that goes into progressing in life. Because it's one thing, like say after my detox that I was telling you about there, like after I got out of it, like I didn't have any direction, so I was clean. And now that I'm clean, like all these emotions are coming up that I had suppressed for 10 years or whatever by using opiates. They're coming out, and I'm not sure what to do with them
Mm-hmm.
at all. And so um, it can definitely get people through the withdrawal part of it, but the work afterwards is much more intense, I would even say, because that's where that's where it's really new things are set in motion afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah. That resonates deeply with me. I run an addiction circle for men. We meet every week, and most of those guys are sober. A few of those guys are working on getting those last few things sealed up and getting long-term sobriety, but most of the guys in my group have just begun that sobriety train, or they begin it right when they start with me. And so, my guys know really well that once you quit, there's a whole other world that opens up, and it's not that comfortable in the
Yeah.
beginning because it's all the reasons why you were using are still there. Your shame, your guilt, your trauma, your coping mechanisms, um, your unresolved issues, your resentments. It's all there in your face. And when you can't run from it, it kind of like gets louder and louder. And so a lot of times what I'm working with guys on is all the different tools to deal with this stuff, to not use when all this stuff's coming up, to figure out how to face that. So yeah, in many ways, like the work starts once you get clean and clean up your consciousness so that you're at that sort of square one place where you can actually look around at all the piles of stuff that's there for you to deal with, to work on. Yeah.
Absolutely. You get thrown out there. That's why say typically when people are coming from addiction, like I think the most positive thing that can happen, including integration time, is say going to an ibogaine clinic, then coming somewhere like here, and then
Mhm.
obviously having plenty of guidance and coaching afterwards to a pretty deep degree. People can get out a lot of, say, the hate or the um, frustration that they may carry around, or the resentment for people. There's a way that happens for people. Yeah, Iboga is good at getting. There's kind of three main things that happen for everybody through the experience. And there's definitely a deep mind cleanse that happens, which includes our memories and habits. There's a recalibration of our brain chemistry, so our adrenals, serotonin, dopamine. That's why it's very effective, specifically for opiate addicts, because that stuff can take a long time to come back around. And then there's a deep emotional purge that happens, and usually that's not during the intense part of the experience. It's typically like, say, the day after, as things slow down, and some clarity starts to come from people. And yeah, just at a very cellular level, people are able to release that, not necessarily consciously. It's not like they have to focus on it, but just through the experience itself. Like absolutely, people feel just lighter. They look back to the relationship with their parents and just don't feel the same about it anymore,
Mm.
whatever they're dealing with.
So what does the mind cleanse look like? Like I'm curious about this. I'm definitely curious about this whole phase that you've just opened up here, which is like what the inner work portion of Iboga looks like. I've never done it before. I've done plenty of ayahuasca. Um, of course, everybody's going to describe that differently as well, because there's so many different ways to conceptualize that world. But yeah, I'm curious in your words what yeah, what the inner work of iboga looks like. How does a person work with it? How does it change you?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so maybe we could start with a mind cleanse. Like, what does that look like?
Yeah. So typically the mind cleanse starts anywhere from, an hour and a half to 2.5 hours within the experience. And really, probably 80-90% of people that go through this experience have it in some form. And it's not necessarily a pleasant thing, but really what happens with during an Iboga experience here with the mind cleanse is people's minds go into overdrive, just where they're say having 3 thoughts a second, and it just
Mm,
jumps from one thought to the next thought to the next thought, and before you can resolve a thought or get any information from a thought, it's already on to the next one. So kind of the mind just goes back and forth, just through thousands of thoughts for could go an hour, may go 3 hours. And so we definitely prep people well for that. Like when that happens, that's actually a good thing that's happening. And so just know that it's not the time for you to get information or answers on anything. This is the time
right.
to actually clean the mind. And so yeah, essentially just quickly cycling through thousands of thoughts over an hour or two, and then once people come back the following day or the following night from the experience, they absolutely feel a much quieter mind. And with a quieter mind, we're more able to focus on what's important for us, and we're able to watch our own dialogue within ourselves, the things we tell ourselves, how we perceive our past. And so yeah, it's a very valuable part of the experience.
I'm when you're describing that, I'm like picturing the spirit of iboga just like flicking its fingers through the filing cabinet of your mind, just like looking through everything at its own pace, which is like faster than what's comfortable for the person. But I'm curious, like how you would describe that part of it. Like, what's the spiritual? What is the plant spirit of iboga doing in that moment?
Um, it's tough to say. I think it's doing so many things at once, to kind of grasp, exactly what the spirit of the medicine is doing. At its core, iboga, the spirit of the plant, or the spirit of iboga, is a healing tool. So whatever is going on, I have 100% confidence that whatever is going on is going to be helpful
Yeah.
for the person. With the nature and say the character of iboga, one thing that's a bit different is it can be funny quite often. I guess ayahuasca seems a bit more serious, and I've gotten a lot out of ayahuasca myself, but it doesn't seem like there's too many jokes happening in there, at least for myself. Whereas definitely iboga can be cheeky. It can make you cry, but it also make you start cracking up, and yeah, sometimes they'll start getting some you know giggles going around the room, and it builds up from there through the group. But yeah, it's always working, getting us closer to whatever it is that we need um,
Hmm.
to make the most of our time here.
I'm curious if you have a sense of why the mind, like the rapid thought patterns, like why that occurs for a person. Like why is that essential for this? Like what appears to be a reset or a cleaning out. Why does that occur for people?
I think it's very much like you described, going through the filing cabinet. That's the way that it goes through and get. So, it's bringing your consciousness to this thought for a split second, which is enough time for it to kind of pass by you and go out. So I think, the things that we bring in through our life through experience, we're conscious and aware of them at some point. And like I was telling you about Gary, my partner, he would always say, things. that come inside of us, come through the front door, and they also leave through the front door as well. So it's that split second of just
Mm.
awareness of this thing that's moving on from us. And so, yeah, it's just
Mm.
a last little glimpse at it as it's moving things out. Because Iboga,
Oh, interesting.
from what I've seen, doesn't put a lot of things into people. It's really more about removing things from people.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. I see. Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah, I can't remember who was described, if there was like Joe Rogan or Aubrey Marcus, but the first time I ever heard about Iboga was when Aubrey went on Rogan's show, like back in 2011 or something, and he told his story of an Iboga ceremony, and uh, somewhere in there, I remember one of those two guys using the analogy of like it's it's kind of like when they went in there, your desktop has all of these like icons on it, all these files and folders. Like that's literally how my desktop is right now. It's like half full of like different files and folders that need to be filed. And that there was like a reset that occurred during the ceremony, and that when the computer booted back up, there was just one folder on the
Yeah.
desktop that says my old shit, and it's just all filed away in there. And what you were just describing sort of makes me think of like a defrag, or going through all of your files and just physically putting stuff into the trash bin, and you get to watch all of those things as they go out the front door, which makes sense to me. Like I don't really think there is a back door in the mind in terms of like letting things out. You do have to like bring things up. This is what therapy is all about. Like you bring things up, you work through them, and then they go. So um, this sort of therapeutic process that Iboga is doing makes some sense to me. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. You brought up Aubrey. That was probably the biggest thing to happen for Iboga at the time, was him going on the Joe Rogan podcast and speaking about his experience.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, so he actually went to the place that I was talking about with my first teacher here in Costa Rica. So it was my first teacher where Aubrey went and
Mm.
and and had that experience there.
Yeah, it's good exposure for the medicine.
Yeah.
It sounds like there's a really unique um, gift in this medicine that's resonated with you just beyond your addiction, but it's entering into just like enriching your life and creating a more uh, meaningful experience of life. Yeah.
Absolutely. Put my feet on the ground for sure. Like, it's very, very grounding medicine. So when people go through the experience, there's typically not a lot to figure out. In the end, whatever needs to be known is going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
But there's not, um, if there's a message to say, come with a vision, it's going to be there. If it's not, it's pretty well chalked up to, subconscious cleansing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we call it the greatest hunter for the truth, because in the end, you're going to be there and you're going to be able to connect with what's right for you, what's true. We definitely get a lot of people that suspect, early, say, sexual abuse in their childhood, and um, some of them walk away with, I'm glad I have the answer that it didn't happen, and others, I'm glad I have the answer that I now know for sure that it did happen. And yeah, so it just gives you the truth of your life. And the most important part of it, that is, what do I need to do going forward to make myself whole? Like, you
Mm.
know, here's, obviously with humans, a lot of it comes down to the mind, but yeah, it gives you, it doesn't just, clear things out while you're here, but it also shows you where you need to go. And it shows
Mm.
you what's important and what you want for yourself, because once you know what you want for yourself, then it's a matter of working and putting in the reps and making it happen for yourself. And so, yeah, it does give you, Iboga does give people motivation to go out and work hard afterwards.
Mm.
Uh, you
Mm-hmm.
know, one unique thing about Iboga too is, you know, other plant medicines can, say stay in you for a few days or a week or something like that. Iboga goes, very deep in the body, metabolizes in the liver, and then slowly drips out over, a couple months, up to 4, 5, 6 months. And
Oh,
so
wow.
there's definitely a period of guidance in there from the medicine. I mean, not from the medicine, but from yourself.
Mm.
Just Iboga helping maintain, your focus and clarity. And so, yeah, people have this period of guidance afterwards for, at least a month, a lot of times 2, 3, 4 months, of just, in the end, Iboga really protects you from hurting yourself, and that's a big thing, for all of us, is just, self abuse in whatever form that may come. And so, yeah, Iboga really protects you from yourself, even from just, you know um, your own thoughts, and how you perceive yourself, or say forgiveness for oneself, and keeps you from, it just makes you realize, like, if I continue to not forgive myself, I'm going to continue to abuse myself, and I'm simply not going to be happy. And I understand, I just need to let it go from here. It is what it is. It's, in the past, it's not happening anymore, and allow people to move forward.
Wow, you said a lot of things there that actually resonated with me. The first piece around Iboga being the big truth seeker and helping you find the truth of your life. Um, I've actually never really felt super drawn to this medicine, but that part, it strikes a chord in me because I am very interested in the truth of my life, the truth of what's important, the truth of how I can be my best, and also the truth of my past. Like I've done a lot of digging into my past, and I'm always discovering new ways of looking at it. I'm always seeing new angles, new ways of seeing my parents and my brother, and this like really difficult scenario that I grew up in with them, and taking more and more responsibility for my adult self, while also seeing like um, the ways in which I wasn't getting what I needed in my home, but when you shared about people like just getting a definitive answer on whether something happened or didn't happen from their childhood, I was like, whoa, like I recalled some of the other stories I've heard about Iboga, where basically it just like appears to be almost like an all-knowing um, chat GPT that you can just ask about your life and get answers pretty quickly, which is a powerful tool. And there was this other piece that you were sharing about. Um, you said it protects you from yourself, and that resonated too, because what I hear you saying is that it helps people reconnect to the archetype of the mother and father within them, because so many of us have like wounded inner children. We uh, we are not our own parents. We're resentful or have unfinished business with our own parents, and there's many ways in which we don't take care of ourselves. We're not actually fully owning the responsibility of what it means to be in this body, in this life, to care for our inner child, to protect it, to discipline it, but not to punish it, not to guilt it, not to shame it. And so many of us actually walk around guilting, shaming, talking down to ourselves, and suppressing that inner child, and sort of like keeping that inner child in its little cage, and whether we learn that from our parents, or we learn that from siblings, or learn that in the schoolyard, so many of us are doing that internally, and what we're doing is just continuing the cycle. And we're not actually being our own parents. We're not actually taking that inner child under our wing and saying, hey, come here, I got you. I'm going to protect you. You're not going to be punished. You're not going to be put down for feeling your feelings and shamed for screwing something up, or shamed for just having a normal human experience. I'm gonna take you. I'm gonna protect you. I'm gonna hold space for all of your feelings. And it sounds like there's this energy of the father or the mother, or both. I don't know, that kind of comes in with Iboga and implants itself in people to help them better do that.
Yeah, no, that you nailed it. That's the starting point for any healing or living a good life is not abusing yourself. Um, if nobody's perfect at it, but you want to catch it before you cross the line and really start hurting yourself. Like, yeah, I think in the West it's kind of so deep in there that it's okay to put yourself down sometimes, but there does come a point when you start hurting yourself, because you could learn all the techniques in the world and understand everything logically about how to live and the relationship with yourself. But if you abuse yourself and all the many ways we can do that as a human, we're just not going to get there. And like I
Mm-hmm.
said, nobody's perfect at it, but you want to get good at it. And you mentioned you know kind of being able to parent yourself or teach yourself, and that's absolutely how we approach life in the Bwiti, because we're the only ones that can really give us our own self-worth. We're the only ones that can truly love ourselves, or we other people can love us, but we can't depend on somebody else's love for our own self-worth. And so
Mm-hmm.
as we make mistakes in the Bwiti and things come up, we recognize the mistake. We give ourselves the truth of what happened, and also what we need to do next time when that thing comes up, and then the ability to then let it go from there is
Mm-hmm.
the trick in all of it, and not carry it around and make it into something bigger and start piling it up from there. But being able to let things go is one of the best skills you can have. Just the ability to sometimes say fuck it, and if I continue to put my attention and focus on this, then it's just going to drag me down, and so I'm just gonna move forward. but but you said, yeah, you nailed it with Iboga. So as we look at it in the Bwiti, Iboga has a spirit of both man and woman in it. And
Mm-hmm.
so, yeah, you definitely get both sides of that. You get, the masculine and directness of it, but also there comes a time where, yeah, you need to, have some warmth and some love, and so both of those are definitely in there within the medicine itself and the way it teaches.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful, man. Um, yeah, I wanted to ask. I have a couple more questions that I feel like are really important. Um, and yeah, I think maybe the place to go here is really, um, I would love to hear some stories, like some. What have you seen people come in with, and how have you seen them leave? Like, what have been some of the most impactful um, experiences that you've seen happen in people who've come through your center?
One thing with the people that come here, we try and give everybody what they need to move forward. So maybe some people need a bit more attention than others, but yeah, definitely don't play favorites from everybody. But everybody comes from their own place in life. Probably some of the most difficult ones I've heard of. We've had a couple women come through that say we're part of cults, or like satanic ritual things when they were kids, which is just
Mm.
unbelievable to me. And them, for them, I kind of always expect like, wow, they're going to have a really difficult journey. But what has happened is they actually have a really loving journey because that's what they really need at the time.
Mm.
But there's situations we put ourselves in, say blacking out, whether drunk or through drugs or getting knocked unconscious, but also sex is such a deep thing that when that happens, when you're a child and say you're abused like that, it just, yeah, it just gets in there very, very deeply. And as we view it in the Bwiti, those are, just situations where we're very vulnerable and the soul can either look to say leave us or very much protect itself and not come back out for a long time. And so, yeah, getting people getting say their soul back in is a big part of that, and understanding that they don't have to be scared anymore and just seeing their faces light up afterwards, and yeah, get a chance to move forward in life. I think that I'll go into some others, but before I forget, I think really the next frontier for Iboga, and it's already happening, is there's going to be a lot of probably pharmaceutical medications created out of it for a wide variety of things. But what we've had a lot of in the last 2 or 3 years are people that like have knots on their head, or they have like neurological symptoms of numbness, or knots and stiffness, and a jaw that can't stop moving, like just a lot of stress and tension. And they go to see, all the doctors, neurologists, what's wrong with me? There's nothing wrong with you. You're okay, but they're living in severe pain and migraines all the time. Being a lot of people like that coming through, and yeah, realizing that it was just caused by their mind, and excessive stress, and you know um,
Mm.
self-hatred to some degree, and like being able to work that out. And so um, that's always neat to see when they really run the course on Western medical options for healing these sort of things, and seeing them be able to overcome that. But what's always
Mm.
cool as well is seeing anybody over the age of 30, 35 or so. A lot of times we'll have people take a picture of themselves before and do the before and after. Like if you're over say 40, people always look 2, 4, sometimes 5 years younger, just working the stress out of their face. And we've actually had a couple people too that after their Iboga journeys couldn't, they had face ID security on their phone, and couldn't get into their phone after
Whoa.
the, just the features shifted so much. And
Whoa.
so it's always cool to see. But yeah, just yeah, depression, man, depression and anxiety, and a mind that's just doing its own thing. Like that's the big one that people come to, and yeah, people get locked up and just thinking that they are actually their mind, and it is a huge part of us and what we need for 98% of the things that we do in life. But from our perspective, Bwiti, we're a mind, a body, and a soul. And what happens
Mhm.
is people fully start living from the mind, and obviously things get off balance. And so, through Iboga, being able to bring those three things back together, working in unison again with the mind cleanse that I mentioned earlier, the emotional purge that happens, and then the protection from not abusing yourself. And so once those things come together, people have a really good shot of moving forward. And if they really want to do it, like in the early years, it was like, yeah, get an integration coach or whatever. But over the last 7, 8 years, it's like really pushing it. And we work with a few people. Like, if you really want to do this and accelerate your growth, you need somebody there that you can share with, that can give you guidance. Somebody that really knows what's up. And so that um, really provides like the longevity to people's success from what I
Hmm.
see.
Yeah. Do you guys do integration sessions at a group level, or do you set up individual sessions with people afterwards, or do you outsource that to people that you trust for people to get integration?
Yes, so here before people go, we definitely give them instructions on some do's and don'ts whenever they leave here. We have group calls once a month for any Iboga Wellness Center clients that have been here,
Mm.
and so we have those that go about an hour and a half each month, but which is nice, but typically not enough. But yeah, we have a handful
Mhm.
of coaches that have been here or been involved in Iboga or know how we work, or just really solid all around that we direct people to.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, that's great. Super important to have integration work, and um, yeah, that was really interesting what you said about um, first of all, this like people feeling like they got their souls back after abuse, which is like a part of them, was able to come back in, and probably that I would imagine that that's due to this sort of cleaning out of the what's been stored in the body, by the medicine. And then, so then they're like, they feel more safe to inhabit their actual body again. So that's amazing and such important work, right? Unfortunately, sexual abuse and abuse in general is just so prevalent still today, but also this piece around resolving psychosomatic issues or yeah, things that are occurring in the body that at some level are attached to what's happening in the mind, and that uh, when you can go in and do some of that mind cleaning, lo and behold, some of those things in the body change. And we like to think, I think, in the Western world, that what's happening in our body is not connected to our mind because they're separate things, but
Yeah,
they're not. The mind, the body, and the soul are all connected through these threads, and that when there's like a syncing issue between the three of them, you're going to have issues come up. You know, um, I have a client who is in my addiction circle right now, and he's been really struggling to break out of certain patterns in his life. And we were working with him on it a couple weeks ago, and the guys just started lighting him up and saying, like, dude, you need to just go do something big.
yeah,
And he wasn't willing to go to Iboga Wellness at the time. It's not in his frequency right now. And but one of the guys was like, man, like, go do Landmark. Go do Landmark. See if there's a Landmark thing happening near you. He found one that's actually, they're doing it online right now. And I've never done Landmark, but I know a bunch of people who have done Landmark. And as much as the enrollment part of Landmark can be a little bit like, what it does to people on the level of the mind is noticeable. What I see happen in people when they do Landmark and they do it fully, and just like really engage in it, is it changes their mind. And so this guy said, screw it, and went, registered, and just did it this past weekend and was sending us updates. And it's true. His face looked different on the videos he was leaving for us. He was talking differently. He had a different mind, like a different perspective on what his life could be. And it looks like it looks almost magical, the way that when you change your perspective, when you can change your mind a little bit, all of a sudden your outlook on your life is totally different. And uh, it does seem to change your facial structure. It was amazing to see that change happen in him in such a short time. So, um,
yeah.
yeah, I
What
love.
familiar with it? What is Landmark briefly?
Yeah, the Landmark Forum is a personal growth workshop essentially that happens over, I believe it's 3 days, and it's been going down for like 4 decades or so.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And I'm trying to remember the guy's name who started it. There was like a group of workshops that occurred before Landmark evolved, but it's sort of the next evolution, and it's pretty prevalent. Like pretty much everybody knows somebody who's done Landmark. And it largely works on the level of mind and integrity and what that really means, and what it really means to own your responsibility in your life completely, rather than outsourcing and blaming your parents, holding your resentments over your parents. Like, they really help you take it all back in. Like, okay, listen, you're an adult now. Like, you're truly an adult. The
Yeah.
only person who's going to change your life is you. And the actions that are going to be taken to make those changes are going to be done by you. So it's time to take 100% responsibility for everything that's happening in your life, because you are an adult. You are the king and the queen of your existence. So here it is. And they sort of like hand it to you on a plate, and they help you go and deal with some of your unreconciled stuff with your family, and call people and like clear things that you haven't been sharing with people, and just like clean your slate, like empty out, so that you have a new possibility that can open up in your life. And you can see it, you can feel it in people when they're going through that. And it there's some level of that that resonates for me when you're sharing about how Iboga helps to clean out your mind and give you a new perspective.
Yeah, great. I'm gonna have to look into that landmark. But yeah, no, that sounds like the truth, man. And that's the thing, with Bwiti or aspects of religions or spiritual paths or techniques, like um, yeah, there's some truth in all of them, and it's about finding the things that actually work. And that's with our path of Bwiti, it's yeah, it's very very simple and just very direct, but the way they packaged it into this thing that you can draw off very easily, and it's not esoteric at all, is just really helpful. Same thing, like you know maybe that did your parents did do that to you, but they're not doing it now, and
Mhm.
you have to take full responsibility for your life. Nobody else is responsible for your life, and that's the truth of it. And so yeah, good, that's awesome to see uh shifts like that.
Yeah, the guy's name is Werner Erhard, the guy who started Landmark, and he ran something called Est between 1971 and 1984, and then he replaced Est with the Forum. They call it the
Mm,
Landmark Forum, and it's been operating since '85, which is about as long as I've been
nice.
alive. So yeah, thank you, Levi, for coming on and talking about this work and helping me understand a little bit more about Iboga and how it works in the body and how it works in the mind. Um, is there anything else that you think is essential for people to understand if they're feeling, let's say they're on the fence, they're not sure whether they're being called to Iboga or not, and um, how do you coach people to feel into that and make a decision?
I mean, people, you're gonna probably know if you're called to Iboga. There may be some research to do and looking into things, to get the information you need. But yeah, people typically know inside. But the mind can definitely come up and give people fear, and like, can you handle it? And to be honest, like Iboga gets lumped together with other plant medicines and say psychedelics, but in many ways it's it's in its own class. Like, really, I look at it as a healing and just life growth tool. But for any decision, say what we do in the Bwiti, and probably similar to other traditions as well, and we do this every morning, is just wake up, and it's our form of meditation, but we simplify it by just cycling through two or three of our senses. So say, what do I see, what do I hear, and just rotating back and forth every 3 to 5 seconds and say, prior to going into that session, if there's something, some information you need or some guidance, you just simply bring that in, like, I'm looking for guidance and direction on this, and then go into your senses. Because when we're using our senses, obviously our mind isn't working,
Mm-hmm.
and or isn't going. And when our mind's not going, that's when we can listen to our intuition, or as we look at it in the Bwiti, the way that our soul speaks to us is through our intuition. And that's
Mm-hmm.
really where we want to go for the big decisions in life. The other 99% we need our mind for. But for these big, life decisions, being able to get them from there. So very simply is going in, beforehand, I want information or guidance on this, and it may not happen that day or the next day. It could take some time until the things bubble up and come through. But yeah, just going into the senses and quieting the mind, and waiting for the answer to come up.
Mm-hmm.
But usually with Iboga, people, once they read about it enough, and get the information they need, they'll know.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I love that guidance piece. That's a beautiful tool that people can use, to remember that, like, not all of the answers are in your mind. It's
Mm,
okay to ask a question. It's okay to come up with a question from your mind, and to put that out there, but then to settle down the mind, get into the body, get into your present moment experience of what's happening around you and in you, and that the answers come more from a deeper place once you can actually drop into that space, beyond the mind. Yeah.
Absolutely. And typically, what I found with myself, anyways, and others, is those answers come from the feeling comes from a different place in the body. Typically on the mind, it's very high up on the head, whereas guidance, intuition coming through in that way, typically feel it, more in the core area, or on the forehead, your third eye area. And so if you're getting messages from there, yeah, act on it and trust it. Once you trust it and act on it and develop some confidence in it, and things turn out okay, then then you've got a very powerful tool there to help you go forward in life. And so yeah, being able to recognize things, being able to recognize what comes from your mind versus the intuition, is a really powerful skill to develop. And that's
Mm-hmm.
really just takes some time and some practice.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I was just talking with a friend who was sharing that, he's in plant medicine work and has been doing it for a few years now. And he was sharing that he, in a moment of really being in that space, just received this message from deep, his gut, his heart, that he needed to quit his job and start coaching again. He had done coaching like last decade and then focused on plant medicine work for the last 7-8 years. And he was like, that's, I'm, but what if, like, that's going to take a while to build up, and what am I going to do about money? But he had enough of experience and faith in these messages coming through that he was like, okay, this message is not coming from my mind. It's coming from something deeper, the medicine within me, you could say. And so he went and he quit his job.
Wow.
And within a week, he basically had a full roster of coaching clients, just
Oh, wow.
via reaching out to a couple people and saying, like, hey, I'm coaching again. And those people ended up saying, well, can I hire you? Because I actually need a coach right now. That's not what his intention was, but it just happened for him because he was listening to that voice inside of him, from that deep place. So yeah, I like that, really listen to um, what's really calling you, um, and follow that, practice following that day by day. When people come to Iboga Wellness, how long do they come for? How many ceremonies do they do? Like, what is the stay like?
People are here for 7 nights. And so on night 2 and 5 is when we do the ceremonies. And so yeah, definitely a lot of counseling, do one-on-one talks with people, group talks. We share the full wisdom of, say, the Bwiti tradition, like starting from the beginning and what life means. And here's our tools as humans, and, how to deal the past, present, future. And so, but in the end, I'm definitely here to guide people, but make no doubt about it, like, here to set the stage properly. But Iboga is, what gets the job done. And so,
Mm-hmm.
and really, it's not Iboga teaching, it's allowing people to teach themselves. So Iboga gets everything out of the way for people to get to the truth of the situation, accept it, show them the path forward, the answers. And then once they have, that, then they realize, oh, the answers are there within me. You're not getting it from outside, or
Mm-hmm.
nobody's it makes them realize that they have it within. And so, yeah, so it's a week, but Iboga can definitely slow time down. So for a lot of people, it seems like a longer time than that. But yeah, they come for 7 nights.
Right. Yeah, it can probably feel like an eternity. That it definitely happens with ayahuasca, where you can have one night that just feels like you spent an entire year in there,
Yeah.
in that circle. Um, yeah, and that's nice that that you place the ceremonies on night 2 and night 5 and spread them out and create lots of integration time. That makes good sense. And I also just want to say that I appreciate the way that you talk about iboga as being like, you talk about it respectfully, but you don't make it a god, you could say. um it's a little more like Eastern in its, the way that Eastern traditions say, like, oh, God, the God spirit is within you. Your connection to God is within you, and it is in you. Whereas like the Western traditions are a little more like, God's up there. You've got to like do these right things in order to be in good favor. Um, with Iboga, you're saying like, this is a unique and powerful tool, but it's not like special in that it has these special powers that it's going to give you, and that you
Yeah.
don't have them without it. It's more like it's going to open some doors for you, and you get to look inside, and you get to have these experiences and have and learn these things about yourself. But it's the door opener, and you're actually accessing your deeper teacher. And that's a beautiful, empowering way to look at these things, So, yeah, I
Yeah.
appreciate
That's,
that.
that's it. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's, yeah, we're the ones that make all our decisions. We're the ones responsible for our life. Yeah, Iboga just gives us a look at what's really in there when we get past the mind, all the emotions, the bad habits, and really shows people, like, I do have what I need inside. And when they can get a glimpse of that, it's just very motivating for people. Like, it's always been in there. And the truth is in there, and I can forgive myself. And so once people get a look at that, yeah, it's life changing.
Hmm. Well, Levi, thank you again for taking the time to talk with me and share with me about this stuff. I know you've done a bunch of interviews, but it's like, it's nice to hear it for myself and sit with you and talk with you and have a conversation. And thanks for coming and sharing your medicine with me.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. Yeah, no, thanks so much for having me on. I think it's a great just format, and your audience for sharing about Iboga, and so yeah, really appreciate it.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe one day I will come down and see you in Costa Rica. That would be a wild adventure. Folks who listen to my show know that sometimes I host small 1 week retreats myself, where I'm not the one serving the medicine, but I am the one hosting and providing the extracurricular support around the retreats, and I do that mostly for men at the moment. But one day, um, when I'm able to get away from my family for a longer period of time, I'm probably going to open up trips where I bring groups of people that are connected to me down to places that I trust, to take them on these sort of, you could call them inner adventures and inner healing retreats. So would love to come meet you at some point and see what you got going on down there at Iboga Wellness.
That'd be wonderful. Yeah, yeah, cool. We'll be here when the time comes.
Thanks, Levi. All right, everybody.
Okay, thank you so much.
Bye
Thank
bye.
you.